It didn't start with shouting. It started with a sentence tossed like trash across a warm kitchen. I just dumped the kids on her. She doesn't do anything anyway. I stopped in the hallway, breath held. Grocery bag cutting into my wrist. A catering receipt fluttering in my other hand. I'd slipped in through the side door like always. Trying not to interrupt. Trying to help. Their voices carried over the clatter of plates. An easy laugh. A casual agreement. The kind people use when they've already decided who you are. She's already paid for the food. The least she can do is keep them upstairs. The numbers on the receipt stared back. Bana 963.75. Inked proof of everything. I kept giving that no one seemed to see. I stepped backward, quiet as a shadow, and slipped out the way I came. My car was cold. I sat without starting it, not because I didn't know where to go, but because I suddenly didn't know where I stood. I wasn't a guest. I wasn't a mother. I was the plan. Something inside me cracked. No sound, no mess. Just a clean break you feel more than hear. And in that split second, I understood. If I kept saying yes, they'd never learn my name. My name is Renee Marlowe. Where are you listening from? Tell me in the comments. And if this first page of my story grabs you, like and subscribe. The rest might sound familiar. When I got home that night, the house felt smaller. Not quieter, just smaller, as if those few words in the kitchen had squeezed the walls inward. I set the grocery bags down, smoothed the crumpled receipt, and stared at the number, 963.75. That was supposed to be my gift. Christmas made easy for everyone. Now it looked like a price tag on my own silence. I tried to shake it off. They didn't mean it that way, I told myself. But the sentence kept looping in my head like a broken record. She doesn't do anything anyway. Every memory began to replay. Each yes I'd said that had slowly turned me invisible. When Emily had her surgery, I'd run pickups, dinners, laundry. When her sister needed help, I'd kept their kids for 3 days straight. No thanks, no pay. Just the unspoken rule. Mom will do it. Somewhere between those favors. I'd stopped being a mother and become a convenience. Logan's voice, once soft and grateful, had turned practical, managerial. Mom, can you? Was always followed by a task. I poured a glass of water, sat at the kitchen table, and whispered to the quiet house. I taught them how to rely on me. I never taught them how to respect me. The words hung in the air, honest and heavy, and for the first time in years, I didn't clean up after myself. I just sat there, letting the guilt drip away like melting ice. Sleep never came that night. The house hummed with its usual sounds. The refrigerator clicking, the wind brushing the window. But my thoughts were louder. Every memory, every favor, every quiet yes lined up like ghosts at the edge of my bed. At 3 a.m., I gave up on rest. I switched on the kitchen light, the one that hums softly before it flickers, and grabbed an old receipt from the drawer. On the back, I drew 2 columns. Given, received, under given. My pen moved fast. Babysat for free, paid for holidays, cooked for 20 every Thanksgiving, cleaned their messes, smiled when I wanted to cry. The list grew longer until it almost touched the bottom of the page. I hesitated before writing under received. Then I realized there was nothing to write. No gestures, no gratitude, no thought. I added a single dash, just one thin, lonely line, the symbol of a lifetime of imbalance. Tears fell onto the paper, bleeding the ink, turning given and received into one blurred shape. It felt almost poetic. My effort and their indifference, bleeding together until they were impossible to tell apart. I flipped the paper over and wrote again. What they assume. What I want. They assume I don't mind babysitting. They assume I don't need rest. They assume my time doesn't matter. And on the other side, I wrote the truth I'd never said aloud. I want to be invited, not expected. I want to enjoy, not host. I want to be seen as a person, not a duty. I stared at the list until my eyes burned. And for the first time in my life, I realized I'd been loyal to exhaustion, not love. By morning, the list was still on the table, wrinkled, stained with coffee rings and tears. Sunlight spilled across it like a quiet witness. And for once, I didn't rush to clean it up. I just stood there, staring at the truth I'd finally written down. That's when my phone buzzed. Nadine, my oldest friend, the one who'd moved out to a little ranch 2 states away years ago. She'd called before, every holiday, every year. Come spend Christmas with me this time, Renee. Let the younger ones do the work. And every year, I'd said the same thing. I can't. Family comes first. But as I looked at that word, family, I realized how empty it had become. Family shouldn't drain you dry and call it love. Family shouldn't take your kindness and rename it obligation. When I answered, Nadine's voice was warm and familiar. Her laugh carried sunlight through the receiver. I was about to call you again, she said. I've got an extra room. You, me, and a bottle of wine by the fire. No cooking, no chaos. Just peace. For a moment, I almost said no. That automatic, reflexive no I'd used all my life. But instead, I took a breath and whispered, okay, just one word. Small, simple, soft. But it felt like the loudest yes I'd ever spoken. That evening, I called the catering company. Hi, I need to cancel an order for the 25th. The woman hesitated. You'll get a partial refund, Mrs. Marlowe. About 1,000 back. I smiled as she spoke. For the first time in years, I wasn't losing money. I was reclaiming value. And the peace that followed didn't feel borrowed. It felt earned. That night, I packed slowly. Not with excitement, but with a kind of trembling peace. Just one small suitcase, a few sweaters, a book I never finished, and the travel mug I used to take on road trips with their father. I didn't check the group chat. I didn't text Logan. For once, my absence would have to speak for me. When I zipped the bag shut, the sound startled me. It didn't sound like running away. It sounded like permission. I sat at the edge of my bed, watching the pale light of dawn sneak through the curtains. For years, I'd waited for someone to notice how tired I was. For one small thank you that never came. But maybe the point wasn't to be noticed anymore. Maybe the point was to stop waiting. I wrote a small note and placed it on my kitchen counter. I love you, but I'm tired. You'll figure out Christmas without me. No guilt, no explanations, just truth. Simple and clean. The road stretched quiet when I left. The air was cold enough to sting, but I rolled the window down anyway. The sky was a soft watercolor of pink and grey, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone's backup plan. As I crossed the city line, my phone began to buzz. One call, then another. I didn't look. Instead, I reached over and turned the phone off completely. No sound, no vibration, no expectation. Only the hum of the tires on asphalt and the wind through the open window. For the first time in a long time, I was alone. And it didn't feel empty. It felt free. The farther I drove, the quieter the world became. City lights faded behind me, replaced by long stretches of desert that shimmered gold beneath the rising sun. I didn't play any music. I didn't need to. The silence was enough. Raw, unfamiliar, alive. For years, I'd filled silence with other people's needs. Noise had become my comfort. The phone calls, the errands, the requests that made me feel useful. But usefulness isn't the same as love. It's just a softer kind of control. I thought of Logan then. Not the man I left behind, but the boy I raised. The one who used to follow me into the kitchen, dragging his little chair beside mine, just to stir pancake batter. He'd laugh when flour dusted his cheeks. He'd call me his favorite person. When did that child fade into someone who saw me as a resource, instead of a refuge? I tightened my grip on the wheel, as tears blurred the road. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was me. I trained them to believe I had no limits, that I would bend until breaking. And they'd simply grown used to the shape I took. But not anymore, not today. The air outside smelled of dust and sage. The wind tangled my hair as if trying to remind me that I still existed beyond Mom. I passed the state line, the sign flashing by, "Welcome to New Mexico," and for the first time in decades, I whispered the words I hadn't dared to say aloud. I'm not theirs to fix everything for. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't anger. It was truth, and it tasted like peace. Warm, steady, and finally mine. By the time I reached Nadine's ranch, the sky was melting into orange and rose. The air smelled like cedar and earth, the kind of air that makes you remember what breathing is supposed to feel like. Nadine opened the door before I even knocked. She didn't ask questions. She just smiled that knowing smile, pulled me in and said, "You made it." For the first time in years, someone sounded glad that I'd arrived, not relieved that I could help. We sat by the fireplace, 2 glasses of red wine between us, soft jazz humming from the old radio. No noise, no judgment, just warmth. Then my phone buzzed on the table. Logan. The screen lit up again and again. Calling. I let it ring 3 times before I answered. "Mom, where are you?" His voice was tight, clipped. More worried about appearances than me. "Not at home," I said quietly. "Not with you." He hesitated. "What do you mean?" "The food delivery's delayed. The kids." I cancelled it. I interrupted. "All of it." "You did what?" "I paid for everything, Logan. Every year, every meal, every favor. And this time I'm done." He went silent, then sighed sharply. "You're being dramatic." I laughed. Soft. Tired. Honest. "No, sweetheart. I'm being honest." On the other end, I heard muffled voices. Emily. Maybe Maria. Asking what was wrong. Nothing was wrong. Everything was finally right. "I love you," I said, "but I can't keep showing up just to disappear again." Then I ended the call. No tears, no guilt. Just quiet. The kind that doesn't ache anymore. The kind that sounds like freedom. Christmas morning came soft and golden. No alarms, no children crying, no chaos. Just sunlight spilling across the wooden floor of Nadine's kitchen and the smell of cinnamon. Bread rising from the oven. I stood by the window, coffee warming my hands, watching a few horses graze near the fence line. They moved slowly, peacefully, like they knew something about life I had only just learned. Nadine hummed as she stirred the pot on the stove. "Hungry?" she asked. "Starving," I said, and we both laughed. The easy kind of laugh that doesn't have to hide exhaustion. People started to arrive around noon. Her neighbors, friends, strangers, who felt like family within minutes. They brought food, laughter, and stories that didn't revolve around what anyone owed. Someone poured cider into my mug and said, "You look relaxed. You live around here?" I smiled. Not yet. And for the first time, I didn't feel out of place saying it. We ate on the porch, under a sky so wide, it made everything small. Even the pain I'd carried for years. No one asked me to serve or babysit. No one handed me a job disguised as kindness. When Nadine gestured to the end of the table, she said softly, "That seat's yours." Not because she needed me to fill it, but because she wanted me there. I sat down, surrounded by warmth and chatter, the wind carrying the scent of pine and bread, and I realized something beautiful in its simplicity. I hadn't lost a family. I had just stopped confusing responsibility with love. The quiet around that table wasn't lonely. It was sacred. And for the first time in my life, I belonged to myself. It was the morning of December 29th, when the peace finally broke. A sharp knock rattled the front door. Fast. Angry. Familiar. I already knew who it was, before I even reached for the handle. Logan stood there, red-eyed and restless, with Emily just behind him, arms folded tight. Beside her was Maria, face pinched with disapproval, like she'd practiced it on the drive over. I didn't invite them in, but they came anyway. "You embarrassed us," Emily said first, her voice trembling between fury and fear. "The food never showed up. People asked questions. Do you know how awful that was for us? I leaned against the counter, letting her words fall like rain on glass. Maria stepped forward, sharp as a blade. You ruined Christmas, Renee. Then Logan, quieter, but crueler. You made us look ungrateful. I took a breath, calm and measured. I didn't ruin anything, I said. I just stopped playing a role I never agreed to. Logan blinked. What does that even mean? It means, I said, voice steady, I'm not your staff, not the free babysitter, not the invisible cook. I'm your mother, not your servant. Maria scoffed. So this is about pride? No, I said, locking eyes with her. This is about peace. For a moment, no one spoke. Emily's face softened into confusion. Logan's gaze dropped, searching for the version of me who would apologize and fix everything. But she wasn't there anymore. I walked to the door, opened it wide. If you came for forgiveness, you already have it. If you came for control, you've lost it. They hesitated, and then left. I closed the door softly behind them, the latch clicking, like punctuation on a new sentence of my life. 2 months have passed since that knock. Winter has softened into something gentler, the kind of quiet that doesn't ache, but hums with peace. No one calls as often anymore. No one asks for favors, and the absence, once sharp as betrayal, now feels like a blessing. Most mornings, I walk to the public library. There's a window seat that catches the best light afternoon. I bring a thermos of coffee, a worn-out paperback, and sit there as the world drifts by. Sometimes I read, sometimes I just breathe, slowly, fully, freely. On Thursdays, I volunteer at the local clinic. Clipboards, check-ins, smiles for strangers who don't expect me to fix their lives. It's quiet work, humble, honest, and it feels enough. Logan called twice in January. No voicemails, no apologies, just missed calls. I didn't block him. I didn't answer either. Forgiveness doesn't always mean return. At night, I light a candle by the window, a habit I've picked up, though I couldn't say why. Maybe it's to honor the woman I used to be, the one who gave until she disappeared. Or maybe it's for the woman I've become, the one who finally said no, and meant it. I still love my children, but love doesn't mean erasing myself to keep them comfortable. Love can also mean stepping away, so they finally see what was holding them up all along. I turn off the light and whisper into the quiet. I am not missing. I am found. Outside, the world rests under a sky full of silver stars. And for the first time in my life, I don't feel small beneath them. I feel whole.